Over 600 families in Ang Mo Kio will move to new flats under the selective en-bloc redevelopment scheme. The National School Games are back, featuring all 29 sports for the first time since the pandemic hit. 25 million people are under indefinite lockdown as Shanghai's COVID-19 cases keep rising. Good evening, you're watching The Big Story with me, Hairianto Diman. Subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you will not miss a single episode. 4 HDB blocks in Ang Mo Kio Avenue 3 have been picked for the Selective En-Bloc Redevelopment Scheme, or SHANGHAI'S. Now, the first such project announced since May 2018. The blocks involved for the redevelopment are blocks 562 to 565, comprising 606 units. Flats in these 4 blocks are around 43 years old and comprise mainly 3-room and 4-room units. The site is the 5th in Ang Mo Kio to be selected for SHANGHAI'S. HDB says flat owners of the 606 units will receive compensation based on the market value of their flats at the time of the SHANGHAI'S announcement. They will also be offered new replacement flats located in the nearby Ang Mo Kio Drive. Now, units there will range from 2-room flexi to 4-room flats. Joining me is Christine Sun, Senior Vice President of Research and Analytics at OrangeTee Tie. Welcome to the show, Christine. What's your reaction to this announcement from HDB, the first in 4 years on the SHANGHAI'S scheme?
Yes, initially it was quite surprising to hear about the SHANGHAI'S because it was announced so suddenly and over a span of 4 years. But when we look at the site area, we noticed that the piece of land is actually very good because it's well located near the CTE, very convenient, and walking distance to the upcoming MRT station called the Tavistock MRT station. It's also located near landed properties in Serangoon Gardens. Therefore, if there are new buildings that will be built at the site, it will be fantastic due to the surrounding low-rise housing blocks in the area. So when we study the site closely, we notice that the land may not be fully optimized. Currently, the old housing blocks are around 13 stories, whereas the land can be built up to around 36 stories. So this could be a reason why the land was acquired via SHANGHAI'S to redevelop so as to optimize the land usage. I think that the piece of land could be redeveloped into a few tall blocks and may even be an integrated development with some retail or commercial component linked to the Tavistock MRT station. The other reason could also be because the acquisition was done due to the construction of the underground MRT station, which may need more space, and the deep excavation or construction works could also impact the structural soundness of surrounding buildings, especially the safety of older buildings in the area.
Christine, some may see this SHANGHAI'S scheme as hitting the jackpot. Can other residents of older HDB blocks in Ang Mo Kio or in other areas expect their flats to be selected for SHANGHAI'S too?
To answer this question, maybe it would be useful if we look at past data. So from what we understand is that the number of flats undergoing SHANGHAI'S actually comprise a very small proportion of the total HDB population. So maybe around 5%. And usually flats may be selected because the authorities feel that the land needs to be further optimized, or the land parcel has to be cleared to make way for other redevelopment works, such as building an MRT station or a major expressway. So when we study the past records, we noticed that the past SHANGHAI'S were done around every 2 years, from 2014 to 2018, with the exception of this year, where there is a 4-year gap. Well, it could be because of the pandemic. And most of the SHANGHAI'S comprise around 4 to less than 10 blocks of flats. And of course, with the exception of the SHANGHAI'S at Tanglin Halt, which involve many blocks. Therefore, the general SHANGHAI'S exercise, if we look at past records, they usually do not impact many flats and are not done on a very regular basis. So unless the authorities decide to relook and change their SHANGHAI'S policy.
Christine, thank you so much for your insights. Christine San, Senior Vice President of Research and Analytics at OrangeTee Tie. Meanwhile, prices for HDB resale flats rose for the 21st straight month in March by 0.7%, with an estimated 2,269 units changing hands, up from the 1,904 units in February. Meanwhile, among the 27 flats that changed hands for at least $1 million last month, a 5-room unit at Pinnacle at Duxton sold at a record $1.38 million, making it the highest transacted price on record for a resale flat. After 2 years of no competition for most student athletes, the 2022 National School Games is underway. And this year's competitors are excited to be back. My co-presenter Olivia Quay is at our Tampines hub.
All 29 sports back for this year's National School Games, and they include team sports. I'm here watching the Netball B Division match between Geylang Methodist Secondary School and Meridian Secondary School. But current COVID-19 rules still bar the players' schoolmates and families from attending, which sadly means I am the only spectator here. Along with some special guests, Education Minister Chan Chun Sing officially opened the games today.
Student safety is and has always been the utmost priority in our minds. But we were also mindful of restoring some of these important student development experiences at every opportunity for students' overall well-being and their holistic development. This is why we are all delighted to be here today. We are able to resume NSG for all 29 sports with an expected 60,000 students competing this year. The high vaccination rate amongst our students has given us greater confidence to resume all games, mostly in standard format, while mitigating the risks of participation.
The Games was cancelled when the pandemic first broke out in 2020. It made a comeback in 2021 with just 12 sports, only to be suspended and then axed again after a spike in community cases. This year, around 300 schools are taking part across all divisions, A, B, C, junior and senior. Even the team sports are back in their standard formats for the most part, and the student athletes couldn't be happier.
So it's my last year in school, and it's very nice that netball is finally back this year because it wasn't back last year. So it's very nice to see my teammates working very hard, and it's also very nice to see my teammates taking the initiative to ask the captains, because I'm one of them, questions, how to do drills, about the school games and everything that's coming up.
I'm in JC2 this year and I'm in hockey. So this will be my last year competing in A Division and in the National School Games. So I'm really looking forward to competing in this year's games because it has been about 2 or 3 years since we last competed. My team is also looking forward to it, and we are ready and excited to compete this year.
I'm sad that my family cannot come and watch me, but I know they'll be supporting me at home. But my team members are also my closest friends, so they'll be cheering and supporting me from the stands. And my parents always support me throughout whatever I do.
The Games kicked off on March the 21st, so we're still in the early stages of each sport. It will run until August with over 250 divisional competitions being played. Olivia Quay for the Straits Times.
Overseas, the 25 million residents in China's largest city remain confined to their homes as Shanghai continues to conduct more COVID-19 tests and report more infections. It has been over 10 days since the lockdown was first imposed in the eastern areas before expanding to cover the whole city. Daily life has become more of a struggle, with residents forced to depend on city officials for food and other essential supplies. Tens of thousands of people are also being quarantined at designated isolation facilities. Earlier today, the city reported 322 new symptomatic cases and more than 19,600 asymptomatic infections. With more is our China correspondent Elizabeth Law joining me from Beijing. Elizabeth, the situation in Shanghai seems to have got worse since we last spoke to you earlier last week. At that time, the plan was to put the city under a snap two-stage lockdown for mass testings to be carried out. But now it seems that the lockdown is going on indefinitely. What's happening there?
So the thing about Shanghai is that initially, yes, the plan was, even before the two-stage lockdown, was meant to do this slice and dice method where they were going to have targeted lockdowns in various housing estates so that they could test people in small groups to minimize the sort of disruption to the city, which is of course the financial heart of China. That did not go well because cases kept popping up. And then there was, of course, that plan that you mentioned earlier to split the city into half and then again to mass test each half and try and weed out all the cases. But then I think midway through, they did realize that essentially the number of asymptomatic patients were just rising very, very quickly. And simply this is because the Omicron variant is just so infectious. So effectively, what has happened now is that Shanghai is under a lockdown that I think they're by now on their third round of mass testing across the entire city. And still new cases are popping up today. And as you mentioned, it is a record number that was reported today. Neighboring provinces have also made up space for temporary hospitals, but still it is very hard to see how Shanghai is going to be able to lift this lockdown in the near future, simply because the authorities are still very focused on a zero COVID policy.
And what about the people, Lisa? How are the people coping with the lockdown? What's the situation on the ground?
Right. So I'm clearly in Beijing, and but from what we're seeing on social media and from context that we know, that the situation is really getting quite frustrating. People are getting very frustrated, a little bit dire as well, because firstly, food supplies are running very, very low. It's not that there isn't enough food, it's just that food isn't getting to people, getting to places where it is necessary, or people are finding it very hard to order delivery and things like that, because there has been a lack of delivery workers, either because of quarantine, because of people getting locked down, people testing positive, or other logistics workers that they just aren't willing to go into Shanghai unless they're being paid exorbitant amounts, because they're so worried of getting the virus. Because remember, if you get positive here, it's not just about staying home and being able to do an ART test kit on yourself. Here, the moment you test positive, you get sent to a mass quarantine center where you actually may get worse. And you are not allowed to leave the place until you test negative, which could take up to 2 weeks, in fact. And then after that, there are still many other steps along the way that you have to go through, as another 2 weeks of quarantine. So essentially, testing positive for COVID here, even though a lot of people are testing asymptomatic now, is actually a very, very disruptive process. So logistics workers aren't willing to go into Shanghai to work. And the others who have been going around trying to keep the city running, well, we all know now that many of them have also succumbed to COVID.
Elizabeth, thank you for the update. China correspondent Elizabeth Law. Around the world, there are fears about the new Omicron subvariant that has been detected in countries including the UK and India. Called Omicron XE, it is known as a recombinant, meaning it contains a mix of the BA.1 and BA.2 variants. Authorities say it's still too early to draw conclusions on the new variant's severity and ability to evade vaccines.
Here's what we know about the transmissibility of this recombinant of BA.1 and BA.2. Based on an initial analysis of available sequences, there's a slight growth advantage of this recombinant over BA.2, about a 10% increase in transmissibility, not 10 times as has been reported by some. But we are analyzing this with all available information that we have, and we will continue to do so. The analysis will be ongoing, as we do with all variants. And again, this recombinant is classified under Omicron. So as information becomes available, we will update you as quickly as possible.
In this week's Live Picks, we share tips on how to pack smart for your next trip. But first, awards season is most definitely upon us. The Straits Times Live Theatre Awards was announced just this morning, and joining me now to share more is senior culture correspondent Ong Sor Fern. Sor Fern, we have to begin with this year's big winner, Oiwa, the Ghost of Yotsuya.
Okay, this production by the Finger Players was a commission of the Singapore International Festival of Art. It's based on this famous Japanese legend about Oiwa, a woman who is murdered by her husband, and then she comes back to haunt him. The judging panel were pretty much unanimous in awarding Oiwa 5 awards, including the Best Set, Best Costume, Best Ensemble, Best Director, and of course the biggest prize is the Production of the Year. It's quite a visually stunning production, and the story may be Japanese, but director Chong Zi-Qian, who also wrote the script, he brings a very Singaporean sensibility to this show. The staging uses bunraku puppetry, and it draws from a lot of pop culture references from like horror pictures like The Ring to Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon. It's a great demonstration of what local theatre groups can do when they have the resources and the time to fully develop a show. I really hope that they can restage it, and then also that they can bring it on tour so that more people can watch it.
Yeah, I'll definitely would like to catch it. Now, Sor Fern, let's talk about the acting awards. Jo Tan for Best Actress, and of course, you know, theatre favourites Adrian Pang for Best Actor.
Yes. Actress Jo Tan has been a very busy bee in the last 2 years. She also writes. So King is a one-woman show for which she also won the Best Original Script Award. It's the story of this mousy woman who comes into her own when she discovers like a drag personality in her. And she plays all the 8 characters in this show. It really helped to have filmmaker Jasmine Ng direct her in the show. Jasmine also got a Best Director nomination, but that award went to Zi-Qian. The show was live streamed on digital, and Jasmine, what she did was she framed Jo in these very tight close-up, and she used like a 3-camera setup so that Jo could change characters just by turning her head, putting on a prop, changing an accent. So it's quite an amazing performance. And Adrian Pang is a familiar name to everybody. And I think that it's actually quite hard for him to win because the judging panel, we've come to expect great things from him all the time. And I don't think he's ever given a bad performance in all the years that I've seen him on stage. So he won this year for The Son, which is about a father who's trying to deal with his son's mental health issues. And he was very moving in the role. So, you know, that's why he got it. I mean, he's very good at playing nuance, which is why he's earned like 16 nominations over the years. So this is his 5th win for acting.
Well, thank you so much for the sharing, Sor Fern. Right there, our senior culture correspondent, Ong Sor Fern. With borders reopening around the world, what do travellers need to do to stay safe before and during their trips? Let's get some advice from travel correspondent Clara Lock. Clara, let's start with what to pack. I've seen your latest piece online, and I have to admit, I didn't even think about taking with me ART kits to Johor Bahru last weekend.
So I think when people pack for COVID travel in the new normal, you're looking both for safety as well as peace of mind. And I think ART kits give you that because you can test yourself if you feel any symptoms and, you know, find out what's really going on in your body. And also with Singapore announcing that people can now do virtually supervised ART tests before they return to Singapore, you should definitely pack an ART kit for that because it's going to make things so much more convenient before you fly home. And then also, I think it's useful to pack a throat spray or mouthwash with the active ingredient povidone iodine because this has been shown to reduce the number of COVID particles in your throat. So I find it really useful to use this if I've just been in a crowded place. And then when you go home, you know, now it's the norm to wash your hands. And then I also use that gargle. And lastly, and this sounds really simple, I think it's really helpful to just have a pen in your bag. Because, you know, when you are at the airport and you're filling out one of those like arrival forms or you're at a hotel reception and you fill out those forms, you don't want to touch the pen that hundreds of people have touched before you. So if you've got your own, you know, that's a useful little thing to have.
You're right, I always keep a pen handy, and in fact, I do carry a throat spray around as well. Now, besides packing smart, Clara, what else should travelers pay attention to once they arrive at their destination?
So one tip is if you're going to an attraction that you know is going to be crowded and popular, you can pre-book your tickets because this will save you time standing in line, and you might even get a discount, like a small discount, saving you some money as well. And then also I think it's like so many of us travel out of Singapore to escape the humidity here. So if you're abroad and it's nice weather, it's a good idea to dine al fresco because, just better air circulation and you get to sit outdoors. And I think when it comes to dining, we are used to carrying around hand sanitizer and we always use it before we eat. But I think it's also useful to have it in your bag and use it after you take public transport, because that's when you're going to be in contact with a lot of high touch points like grab poles and escalator handles, and you're also going to be in a crowded space. So that's just a nice little thing you can do for hygiene and to keep yourself safe.
Thank you for the tips and advice, Clara. Travel correspondent Clara Lock right there. And we have one more live pick for you over at the Marina Bay Sands Event Plaza, where 200 limited edition Louis Vuitton trunks are on display. Singapore is the show's first international stop. It is open to the public and admission is free. There's still plenty of time to catch the exhibition before it ends on April 27th. For fans of BTS, here's your chance to see the trunk designed by the K-pop group. It's displayed in its own room and you can even doodle on the walls. The trunk will be put up for auction in December after the show's final stop. Visit straitstimes.com for more news and our YouTube channel for more videos. Subscribe by hitting the red button below. I'm Haryanto Diman. See you tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.